Hey, what's up, guys? What is this? The Rule of Wrath? What the hell is it? Oh, Andy Nowicki. Like my brother James says, okay, Andy's probably the best, one of the best writers living today. Yeah, seriously. Of course, and Andy's work is notorious for being pretty existential, supernatural horror, science fiction, but always taking a second place or a backseat to the very human things driven in here. The human desires, right? Sex, violence, loneliness, stoicism. There's all this stuff in Andy's work that's fascinating. He's probably one of the most decent guys out there who wears his heart on his sleeve. Yeah. So, and I give him credit. Apparently, this is a sequel to another book. He says where it's probably going to be a trilogy if I'm reading this right, and particularly a section in here, which seems out of place unless there's going to be a sequel. This is probably going to be a trilogy, Andy's trilogy here. Essentially, what is this about? This is about the near future, okay? And there is a presidential candidate, and it's done in a nonlinear fashion. You see him during his campaign. You see things before that. You see things after that. You see the aftermath of the election. His name is Crumple, right? And he starts out giving a speech at Phaser Stadium. Yeah, yeah. But those obvious things aside, man, this thing really. He did an interview with Morgoth from Morgoth's Review, and Morgoth, Boy Scout, was couldn't take. So, some of the scenes I couldn't read. It's like, you know, the whole thing. Oh, degenerate! Listen, man. Listen, we're all tainted. What I'm saying is that you can have a very decent man use, and I think it's actually really, like in really good horror, to use horrific scenes, particularly in this book, sexual scenes, to get across a point. Okay, you have everything from, you know, something almost out of like the Omen series, like the third one. Remember the Omen, the one with what's his name, the Australian actor playing Damien growing up. It kind of reminds me of this with this cloning. Like I said, the near future dystopian era. There's a thing in here dealing with the Mandela effect, if you know what that is, which I think is going to figure out. There's going to be a sequel to this. There has to be. Okay, and I'll just say it right now, just to get before I go into some of the pages here. In some ways, this is a very Schadenfreude book, right? This is a lot of things that you and I and Andy would like to see happen. Okay, you can imagine what that entails. Okay, there's some comeuppance. There's a lot of comeuppance that's needed. I feel building up for decades, but we know the world we live in, and you sort of get that in here. But he makes even that ambiguous. Okay, what may seem like didactic or unreadable to a shitlib, he makes it. He makes the savior, the emperor of America, essentially, in this. He makes it seem like it's a very nuanced take. Obviously, he does what we'd like to see in a lot of ways, but Andy always still has this sinister sort of thing behind this character. Okay, is this totally a good thing? Is this the best thing that can happen? With the origins of this are literally steeped in what is wrath, right? The children of wrath, right? Like Ian Paisley, right? The North Irish guy, right? Oh, we're the children of God, aren't we? No, we're the children of wrath, children of demons, or the children of the Lord. Okay, there's a lot of telling things in this, but like I said, Andy, even with what we like to see, you're still not sure if this guy or what's going to happen it ultimately is a good thing. And I really give him a lot of credit for it. For dissident art, you want to be didactic, right? Because you're just a fight against decades of this shit that we've been exposed to, okay? but didactic art is never good. In the end, it wasn't what changed things. It was what was the capital behind these things that changed things. A real artistic message, you want nuance. Okay? Even if you want to give nuance, even if the other side doesn't, because it's better art and it's more based in reality. Right. So anyway, I'll go over a couple of pages here. I don't want to give away too much, other than this is the near future. So I like this little speech he's giving. Right, it's on the campaign trail. A lot of Americans seem to like this guy. Right, what have we had the past 2 decades brought us? Phony pandemics, wars, food shortages. It's coming. Oh, we're doing our best, they say. Just as do as we say. First they say stay indoors until we tell you to come out. The virus is too dangerous. Then they say get this shot, even though it's an experimental vaccine that might kill you, or else you will lose your job. Then send your sons and daughters off to Eastern Europe or Northern Asia to fight in wars that have nothing to do with them, or you and anyone other than the obscenely rich criminals who run this corrupt system. Right? Then they say collect these rations or we will not permit you to feed your family because the economy has crashed and we can do nothing about it. Nothing they could do about it. The economic downturn sure wasn't hurting them, was it? We all saw the videos of them, those obscene oligarchs, dozing in their fancy parties, sailing their luxury yachts, gathering in filthy profligacy at their conferences to discuss their plans for the fate of humanity, while the rest of us struggle to pay our bills, struggle to put gas in our cars, struggle to eat, struggle to live. Right? And of course, the crowd is just like, right? Right. So obviously, the future, some of those things have already happened. Some of those other things are probably definitely gonna happen. We'll go to another page I like here. I mean, a lot of good pages are here. This is recommended, man. Right. So now, just this thing. The presidential election that year followed a significantly different trajectory than ever before. The last several iterations of this dismal American leap year ritual had each become more drearily predictable than the last. Oh, God, hasn't it? Always there was the ratcheting up of hot-button culture war issues. Outrage abounded. People were at each other's throats in no time. It became supremely wearying. Almost instantly, apocalyptic scenarios were feverishly pitched by partisans of each candidate if the other side, or if allowed to win, right? The other side. Right? The phrase, the most important election ever. I think I heard Hannity say that 2 weeks ago when I was in New York. Right? The most important election ever was repeatedly invoked by pundits, podcasters, and talking heads. People who already dealt with a great deal of stress in their day-to-day lives were wound up to the point of snapping. Everyone in their hearts just wanted it to be over already so that some semblance of normalcy could return, but they nevertheless continued to play active roles as supporters of candidate A or candidate B, allowing the overall grotesque spectacle to metastasize further. Election hubbub became like a negative addiction for many. Negative in the sense that, unlike even deeply unhealthy drug addictions, it brought absolutely no pleasure, only strife of spirit. Even if the candidate you favor wound up winning, once the votes were all ostensibly counted, you have the possibility of post-election chicanery to vex your thoughts. Seemingly losing candidate might succeed at bringing the suit charging fraud, or electoral voters could be dissuaded or blackmailed to turn against their own candidate. Right? Even after one candidate or other was actually finally sworn in on inauguration day, which seemed to roll around only after an eternity had elapsed, things never truly felt over. I will say that is so true. Okay, this ever since like the 2000s, man, it's just nothing is over. Everything is just a season, a news cycle. It sounds like a cliche, but it wasn't like that before turn of the century. I'm telling you, as an old head. Right? Little effort was ever made up to make the half of the nation who had voted against the winning candidate feel like they belonged within the new paradigm of power. Thus, alienation festered, ramified, and multiplied amongst the loser half, the voting public. Right? And he goes into like, well, I mean, you know, really one side is dominant, supposedly. Although the other side's leaders are in cahoots. Like union heads are all in cahoots with management. So it's an interesting setup of the future. They talk about forcing rural people to leave and to go into cities, and atrocities being committed. Right? They don't even pretend. The dominant side doesn't even pretend to not see half of America as an enemy. But let's not get into what's actually happening. Let's stick with the story. There's two more things I like to go do. And obviously recommended by this book. Alright. Okay. So now we go to actually what happened. After there's a lot of stuff going on. There's things I'm not mentioning, characters I'm not mentioning, strange relationships I'm not mentioning, metaphors, female sex clones in this. An interesting main character who's probably sided by a demon, right? In the week prior to Evan, that's Evan Crumple. Right? Or an oration, a curious event took place, one which was all the more curious that no one noted it at the time. Even afterwards, when it became a matter of hot debate, few connected it with the extraordinary events that had befallen the nation. What happened was one of those phenomena that have come to be known as another instance of the Mandela effect, when a collective memory from the recent past reveals itself to be apparently false. Right? It's the Bernstein Bears. It's not the Bernstein Bears. I'm with you, Andy. Come on, I was there, dude. Yeah. And the whole idea of where basically a children's book that you grew up with, knowing all the while the title bore a particular name, only to find out as an adult the name had in fact always been different. Right, in spite of the fact that millions of other people recall the same divergent title as yourself. And those millions can hardly be all dismissed as delusional. Right. And this is what I'm talking about where there's a sequel in here. They start to go, one of Earth's moons, right, which saw them with the sail of a great disk, which could be seen by the naked eye on most clear nights, right? But there was another object, right? Information, and this bit of information that many people didn't realize had always been true. There was another object, roughly 1/4 the size of the main moon, which kept up an orbit around Earth, which was much more rapid than its larger fellow satellite. Stories emerged, but they had always been told, apparently, these stories, about how the astronauts on manned moon missions had to plot a course that would be sure to miss this smaller mass, which kept such a relentless pace, completing its circle of the Earth in just slightly longer than once a day. No plan had ever been made to land on the smaller moon titled Hermes, for the speed at which it hurled around Earth on account of its composition apparently be something more akin to slime than rock. Hermes also assumed a deep green color, quite a visible contrast with the duller complexioned moon. Main moon, which curiously had no name other than the moon, as if there wasn't another, as if the streaking emerald flash of slimy consistency weren't truly just as much of a satellite as its more distant and lugubriously placed counterpart. Hermes, it was now understood, had existed. Hermes had in fact always existed, and had always been called Hermes. Right. So this has got this has to be in the sequel to this. There's gonna be a sequel to this. This whole idea of this Hermes. What the hell is this? This slimy consistency. Very intriguing. Very Lovecraftian. All as this presidential elections campaign thing is still in swing. And I'll end it here. Okay, like I said, the end of this is very satisfying to many. It will be very satisfying to you, me, people like us. Very satisfying. Okay, but the way Andy shows it, not all is well. Like I said, it's not like you don't know if you just inherited a greater possible evil, or maybe you've inherited your savior. Maybe that isn't even great. Maybe that isn't even going to be what people think it is. You don't know, and that's what I like about it. Okay, he did the right thing by doing that. It's nuanced. Okay. All right. So going here, right? This guy. Well, I don't want to give away what happens, right? But I'll end it with this, right? For centuries, the nation had been laboring under the democratic delusion, the notion that truth was dependent on what the majority decided at any given time was, of course, violative of common sense, and ought to have been recognized as such. However, what had been worse was the fact that this said democracy was always just a fraud and a smokescreen, and that usurpers, plunderers, degenerates, and impostors, whose name at the time was Legion, had managed to hide their covert tyranny under the banner of democracy. The fact was that the people never were truly entrusted to rule themselves. No crucial societal change ever came out about due to any vote. All had been decided beforehand. Yes, a democracy is just the rule of oligarchs. Always has, always been. Nothing has been corrupted. It was always bad. The rule of wrath. Better to be ruled by wrath than to be ruled by these sons of bitches that we've had the last couple of decades. Anyway, recommend it. Get this book. Good job, Andy.